even if tonight's author hadn't been diagnosed with cerebral palsy when she was 9 months old, we can all agree that she's living a remarkably life filled with bungee jumping, skydiving, Sturgis motorcycle rally going, which is something I've always wanted to do just to check out. She's a world traveler, she's an advocate, just to name a few, which makes it all the more impressive. And once you talk to her, you'll agree that her memoir, Pretty for a Crippled Girl, is a testament to a determination and attitude to overcome all our physical and mental limitations to lead a pretty amazing life. We are so glad to bring Teri Siri here to talk about Pretty for a Crippled Girl. Thank you.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming, and thank Sydney and her dad Klaus, my boyfriend, fiance, for getting their friends to come and supporting me. I really appreciate it. So anyway, I wrote the book. Initially, I started writing the book because for years when I was working at my job at Bonneville Power in Portland, Oregon, part of the Department of Energy, people would come up to me and say just the craziest things that you don't normally say to people. But not just at work, just, whenever I'm out in public, it seems to happen. But, so I would always tell my friends at work, one day I'm going to write a book about all the crazy things people say to me. And they'd always hear people come in my office and say something and run over and say, Teri, you have to write that down, and that goes in the book. And I said, don't worry, it's all up here, because I've heard it so many times, I don't need to write it down. And I used to joke with people, if you come up with something new, I might laugh, because I'd always hear the same things, like if I drove my scooter too fast, they'd say, oh, you're Mario Andretti, I heard that 3,000 times, stuff like that. So I tell them, come up with something new. But, because you kind of have to have a sense of humor being me, because if you didn't, you'd be curled up in a ball in your house just eating bonbons all day, not wanting to go out into public. But people that know. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, the book morphed into a memoir because I found an editor and a publisher, and she read it initially and said, God, Teri, it's really great. You kind of remind me of David Sedaris' writing. And I thought, wow, thanks. That's really good. But she said, but I think we should do it chronologically. So really it turned into a memoir about, so there's lots of things in it, from growing up with cerebral palsy to, making friends, because that wasn't always easy, and having, as I got older, having romantic relationships, which I thought would never happen, because I have two sisters that are really beautiful, and when we were in high school, they always had boyfriends, and I never had any boyfriends, and they'd come home from a date and say, oh, I went out with so-and-so, and he said, oh, your sister's really pretty, too bad she can't walk. And I thought, God, well, that's not my person, But, I said, I don't want to date him. So, that kind of stuff. And then I got older, and of course, I wanted to find a job, to be independent and make my own money, because I really thought, I'm never going to have a boyfriend, never going to get married, so I better learn how to take care of myself. So I started applying for jobs as a teenager, and one funny interview I went on, if you want to call it that, I had really high expectations. I applied for a receptionist, and because I thought, well, I can answer a phone. So I walk in the office, and the guy immediately looks at me up and down like this and says to me, what can you do? And if, I developed a bit of a sarcastic sense of humor at a young age. So I said, well, I'm not applying for construction work. And I said, I can answer a phone. And of course, that didn't didn't go over well with him, so I knew it. So I just turned around and left because I thought I'm not gonna get that job. But I was only like 17, so I was like, all hope was not lost yet. But so I kind of gave up getting a job as a teenager because it just was not working out. And you have to remember, this is in the late 70s, early 80s, and that's another reason. A lot of people, when I named the book Pretty for a Crippled Girl, they went, because, it's not politically correct. But back then, it was, it was normal to say that all the time. I mean, I went to an elementary school as a little girl that was called Holiday Center for Crippled Children, and now it's still in operation, but they've renamed it more politically correct. But excuse me. So anyway, back to job hunting. Then I went to college for a while, and I majored in things I liked, like creative writing, literature, journalism. But I changed my major so much after about 2 years. I found I couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to do, but I liked to write, and I wasn't good at math, so I didn't take any math classes because I thought, if I take a math class, I'll never graduate. I mean, I know basic math, but algebra and above, forget it. That wasn't my thing. So after changing my major so much, I thought, well, I just better quit and look for a job. And I, not knowing any better how the government works at the time, I called them up and I said, can I get an application? How does this work? And I actually ran into a woman whose job was to help disabled people get hired. So she said, let me send you an application. And the application was like this long and 17 pages. And you had to write it. There was no typing on a computer. I'm like, oh my God. So I filled it out, and a couple months went by, and I got a call. And I went and interviewed with a guy. I kept calling to see if they were having interviews yet. And this guy, Mark Roberts, said, well, this is the government. We take a long time. But he said, you sound really interested. You want to just come and talk? And I said, okay. And so we talked, and he said, why do you want to work at Bonneville? And I said, well, I don't want to be on SSI the rest of my life and only have $1,500 at a time in the bank, or else they take your benefits away. And I said, plus, I have a shopping problem called Nordstrom's, and I need to be able to support it. And he laughed, and that kind of broke the ice. And so then about 2 weeks after that, he calls me back and says, my boss wants to talk to you. So I went and had an interview with his boss that went really well. And to come to find out after the interview, Chuck, the guy that I interviewed with, told me he has an 8-year-old daughter that has cerebral palsy. And he said, I hope when she's older that somebody gives her a chance. And I thought at that moment, ding ding, I think I got the job, because he sounded, interested. And, I started out as a clerk typist. So, I just filed a lot and did, but I proved myself, and then after a while, they realized, oh, she's got a brain, she can figure this stuff out, and it just went on from there, and I worked my way up from there, and I worked at Bonneville for 25 years, and retired at 48, and that's when I started writing the book, and it only took 12 years. But in my defense, I quit for a while because I thought, it was really hard because it was almost therapeutic. It's like writing in your journal, because I tried to make it candid, humorous, and honest, and I mean, I included everything in there that a person does in life, including sex, boys, jobs, fun things, adventures, travel, marriages, divorce, new relationships. Because throughout my life, everybody, like I said earlier, comes up to me and asks me the most personal questions. Like for example, can you have sex? I'm like, who asked people that? And you know, one time I was out with my friends, and a guy came up to me and said that, and I said to him, do you ask all the girls that? And he kind of looked at me, and I said, well, you're not gonna find out now, because I said, you know, he's kind of an asshole. So, no, but thanks. I mean, it's crazy. So I decided to put everything in there, even though some people might think, oh God, that's too much information. But really, I just wanted to really show that people like me have the same life as everybody else, the same desires, the same needs, the same experiences. We all want to do that. But a lot of times people, when you're disabled, other people look at you and just see a disability. They don't see a whole person. So that was a major reason for the book, and to just kind of show people, hey, I'm just like you. I mess up. I do good things. Everybody messes up. Everybody has experiences and challenges that sometimes don't work. But you know, like this, sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it. And I feel like that's kind of been my whole life. But I'm really happy with how my life has turned out now that I'm 61 years old. And I really did everything that I wanted. There's a couple things left I want to do that are, I hate the term bucket list. I like to just say, live my life. The more I can travel around and see things, I don't want to regret anything, basically. I want to see everything I can, and I love meeting new people and experiencing new things, and just living life like everybody else. I just do it on wheels sometimes, and sometimes it takes a little more convincing people that, hey, I can do this. You just gotta, sometimes I just figure out a different way to do it, or very rarely have I found something that I couldn't do, other than, help people move or pack. I'm not the person you call if you want to move, but I'll help you unpack boxes. But there's a lot of other things I think I contribute to people, and worthy of a relationship and love and a job, just like everybody else. So anyway, I think that about does it. I don't want to bore anybody. But so if anybody has any questions about anything, I'll answer anything.
Did you want to read a little bit?
Oh yes, I can. I'll read a little bit, just a small portion. My sister didn't want me to read this part, but my best friend, who I've known for at this point like 50 years, she said, no, read that part, because it shows that your family didn't treat you like a fragile doll. They treated me like everybody else, and I think that's important. You have to don't have lower expectations for kids that are disabled, because you got to give them a chance to reach their full potential, and they'll figure it out. And if they, whatever that potential is, let them reach for it. Don't say, oh no, you can't do that. We don't want to say that. We want to say, you can do it. You just got to sometimes try extra hard, and you know when you run into the right people. That's what I've learned for sure. I can usually tell in 5 minutes if somebody is going to be accepting, or treat me like, oh God, are you gonna be okay? Or they whisper to me because they think I'm fragile. I said, why are you whispering? I can hear you. But anyway, this passage is called Old Enough to Tease. And it says, when we got older, around 10, my sisters started picking on me, but it was mostly in a loving way. They hid around a corner in the house and grabbed me as I came down the hallway. Tammy sat on my stomach while Tracy held my arms down. Then they tickled me, and while I was laughing, Tammy would try spitting in my mouth, sucking the loogie back in her mouth right before it hit me. Sometimes the spit hit my face or got in my mouth. I was laughing, but really I was freaking out. I was laughing from the tickling, screaming with disgust, and ultimately enduring the torture. Tammy and Tracy also pinned me down and bit the ends off Red Vine's licorice sticks and blew air up my nose through the licorice. And my Nana, who I write about a lot in this book, she's the greatest person. Nana inevitably came and saved me. I'm sure the high-pitched screaming of young girls drove her crazy. As fair play, Nana would get down on the floor and hold Tammy or Tracy in a scissor lock and squeeze them until they yelled, "Uncle." They laughed and said, "Uncle, Uncle." Once they gave up, Nana would say, "Leave Terry alone." Then she'd go back in the kitchen. And one time at my aunt's house, Tammy, Tracy, Jeff, and Rodney were running around the back field behind the house, filling up a white plastic bucket with garter snakes. I was minding my own business, sitting on the front porch in a lawn chair. Suddenly, all four of them ran up on the porch and excitedly yelled, "Look, Terry!" The bucket was filled almost to the top with garter snakes. A split second later, they dumped the bucket of snakes on my lap and ran off the porch laughing. I screamed bloody murder, stood up and grabbed the front porch railing, probably faster than anybody'd ever seen me move. My Aunt Carol came running from inside the house, opened the screen door, and saw the snakes slither through the weave on the lawn chair onto the ground. At the time, that scared the shit out of me. I was pissed off and cried. I couldn't run after them. If I could have run after them, I would have beaten the crap out of them. If someone other than my sisters and cousins had done that to me, the four of them would have beaten the crap out of the culprits. My family could pick on me, but nobody else could. The lasting scar from that prank is that I still hate snakes and I'm afraid of them. So that was my sister. She'll be so mad I read it. Please don't read it. No, it's fine. But so anyway, I hope you guys like the book. If you read it, there's lots of crazy stories in there, and sometimes sad, and so it's got all the feels. So you'll get a little bit of everything.
Are there any questions people have for Teri, or?
What would you say was your biggest obstacle?
God, there's so many. Other than stairs, I would say the biggest obstacle is just getting people that are not disabled to sometimes realize that, like I said earlier, I'm just like everybody else. I want the same things as everybody else. But I will say that in 1990, they passed Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, think about that. 1990s, not that long ago. And there's been disabled people since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
Although, they hid them away in a home usually. But even though they passed that act, and a lot of things are better, like you can get into certain public areas, but you'd still be amazed at the number of places that you can't get in. Like, I don't normally do this, but a lot of people that I know, especially a lot of paralyzed people I know that I talk with, they call ahead wherever they go to ask if the place is accessible. And I'll just tell you one thing, just because there's a blue sign with a wheelchair on it, we call it blue people. Just because there's a sign doesn't necessarily mean it's accessible, because I've had bathrooms in public places where I go in the bathroom and the door weighs 300 pounds, but it has a blue people sign on it, and I think, well, just put a button there, it would be so much easier. But I found a lot of business owners like to do the bare minimum, and they think, oh, if I just put the sign up or put a ramp in, that's fine, but it really is not. There's a lot more that could be done. But the big bathrooms, that are in a lot of public restrooms, everybody likes those. People go in there and change their clothes, and then I come in there and they come out, oh God, I'm sorry, did you need to use the bathroom? I said, no, I'm just sitting here for the fun of it. But I mean, and I get it, people like it. I like them too, they're great. So I always think, why don't they just put them more than one in a bathroom? Or my other pet peeve is hotel rooms. How come all hotel rooms have bathtubs? It seems like it would even be cheaper just to put a shower in there, a walk-in shower with one little bar, so things like that still need to be improved, even though it's been mandated since 1990. So that would be a huge improvement for a lot of people, not just me, and everybody has different needs, but a walk-in shower would be the bee's knees. I mean, it'd be great. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah.
I imagine your story would be very helpful for people who are younger than you.
Yes.
Have you been able to get your story into the hands of younger people who aren't feeling quite as brave?
Yes, actually, that's funny you say that, because since the book has only been out since January, and I've heard from like 3 people, complete strangers from other parts of the country, and one guy was about 35 and lived in Pennsylvania, and he wrote me a big long message, and I said, oh God, thank you for answering, you must be super busy. And I didn't want to tell him, listen, I'm no John Updike, this is just my first book, so I was happy to answer. But he told me, your book is my favorite book I've read in so long. He said, it's as if you were walking around in my head. And that made me feel really good, because of course people that I know and love, they tell me, oh, it's a great book. But when you hear from strangers like that have read it, it makes me feel really good. And another young woman wrote me, she's probably 28 or 30, and she has cerebral palsy, but she has a job at a nursing home. She told me all this, and she said the same thing. Oh my God, I really loved reading your book. She said it gave her hope, because she wants to find love in a relationship, and she said reading your book really gave me hope. And I told her, hey, you just gotta wait and find the right person will come along. Like my grandma used to say, you gotta kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. That was her big advice. Other than always put your face on before your husband comes home. Because he said, oh, he sees pretty girls all day, so you have to look nice. And she would, they were married 55 years, so, but they both had the same sense of humor, and really, if it wasn't for those two, I think I'd be a completely different person. She told me always, you can do whatever you want, and years later, when I had the job at Bonneville Power, I'd always go to her house after work, and she'd talk to me about work, and and she'd say, "Hey Terry, because when I was first diagnosed with cerebral palsy, the doctors told my parents to put me in a home because I was going to be a vegetable." So Nana, years later, she told me, "Boy, I wish I could bring you back to those doctors and show them what a vegetable you turned out to be."
Wow.
And she was great. My grandma was great, but I talk about her all the time. So she meant a lot to me. Thank you.
What have you seen in the last 50 years, half a century, in medical research for CP?
You know, they don't really put aside a lot of money for that. And to be honest, I never really researched it because I thought, oh, I know what it is because I have it. But since the invent of the internet, I look things up and I think, wow, I didn't know that. But one thing that happens is the minute, did anybody ever hear of Shriners Hospital? Okay, they're really well known, and if you have a disability, like my mom was a single mother for a long time, raising the three of us, and we didn't have a lot of money. And so you have surgeries when you're young. And I don't think they do that as much now. They try not to give you surgery. But all my surgeries were done when I was very young. The last one I had, I was 15, and that was considered old. But once you turn 18, you're considered an adult, and really you're on your own. You have to research, find doctors maybe that have experience with cerebral palsy, which, to be honest, I've never even been to a doctor that has a lot of experience with cerebral palsy. I just go to my regular practitioner. But it would be nice, but they're very, orthopedic surgeons are the ones that do surgeries and things like that, but they don't do family practice. So it's been really hard, and from what I've read recently, there's a lot of places out there that are trying to get more funding for adults with cerebral palsy. But it really doesn't progress per se, your symptoms pretty much stay the same. What progresses is like anything else. You get older and things are a little harder. I've definitely noticed that about myself in the last 5 years, let's say. But, I mean, everybody goes through that as they get older. So it's sad, though, that they cut it off right at 18 and basically you're on your own. So I'm sure there's a lot of younger people now that are smarter than me that are figuring this stuff out and find doctors different ways. And the equipment when you're disabled is astronomically expensive, and insurance doesn't cover it because they say, and I quote, one time I filled out an insurance form and it said, if you have a walker, wheelchair, or scooter, mark this. And I marked it, and they said, oh, you're no longer, don't continue, you're not covered. So I called them, I said, what do you mean? What are wheelchairs, walkers, and scooters considered? Because they say they only cover 50% of durable medical equipment. And apparently wheelchairs, walkers, and scooters are convenience items. So I was at work at the time, and I said, yeah, I guess I could crawl to work, and I hung up the phone. And every insurance is like that. It's not like it was just a one-off. Every insurance I've had is like that. So, yeah, that's one of the things that could be improved is not. You know what they consider durable medical equipment? Hospital beds and oxygen tanks. So I feel like they want you to stay home and not make something of yourself, and they'll just support you, I guess. Not with a lot of money, though, trust me. So that could definitely be improved, but we all know how insurance companies are. I don't think that'll happen anytime soon.
Mm.
That's crazy.
Teri, you said you took some time off from writing this book,
Mm-hmm.
but you went back to write it. And I was wondering what inspired you or prompted you to want to come back and finish Crippled for a Pretty Girl.
Well, Klaus, the cameraman back there, would say to me a lot of times some version of, I can't really say exactly what he said, but he said, write your book, you have something to say. And he would say that every few months. And it would always stick in my mind. And I would say, I will. But, I got a little, I thought, it's a memoir and I'm an unknown person. Who's going to read it? That kind of thing. So and like I said earlier, it was like writing my diary in a way, even though it's not written like a diary. But, so I started getting a little scared, Like, oh God, do I want people knowing my deepest, darkest secrets? So I stopped for a while. But then my publisher editor, which she kind of quit too, because I told her I really wasn't ready. And she called me a couple years ago and said, Teri, let's get this going again. So between Klaus and my publisher, I got back into writing it and finally finished it. And now I have to, do public speaking, which is not my favorite thing. If I'm being honest. Which I try to be in the book.
Well, we are all very glad that you did continue, and we thank you for coming to Chaucer's to talk about your book.
Well, thanks for
Teri
having
Siri,
me.
everyone, thank you.
Thank you.